We're back. We're gonna have to do this in segments, FYI. So it'll be a little choppy this first time. We are doing a cash call, $150 to have Zoom Pro um, provided by the league, and then we will not have these commercial
That's
interruptions.
right, Georgia. Fucking pony up, son.
Pony up, boys. Yeah, we'll figure out the technical aspects, but anyway, we're back. So, anything to wrap up on the defensive free agency, Ben?
No, it's just, there's a little cornerback carousel between teams where everyone just basically kind of paid everyone the same amount of money. And, there's a lot of defensive changes that happened, but I was happy the Vikings got Byron Murphy for 2 years, 22 million. I wish we would have signed him to like 4. I think he's a stud. And he went in the alley. Roman and I met him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was when we met the 4 Arizona Cardinal players. It was Eno Benjamin,
Poor Eno.
Chase Edmonds, and I can't remember his name. I owned him in every league.
Deontay? Wasn't it a Deontay something?
No. It was another. It was the other running back. He's a kind of a special teams guy. Oh, Jonathan Ward, who was a break shit house. He was huge. But Roman asked Byron Murphy, who the hardest person to cover in the NFL. He said, how hard is DK Metcalf to cover? And he's like, DK Metcalf's easy. He's a one-trick pony. He's like, Cooper Kupp is impossible.
Yeah.
He's like, he can run every route. He's so refined. He's like, you can't cover him. He's impossible.
Do you know who I read a comp for Cooper Kupp out of this draft was?
Oh, I saw. What's his name?
Flowers.
Yeah. I saw them talking him up a little bit.
That's interesting. He's a little smaller. Cooper Kupp's 6'2".
Smaller. He's not, I don't think I didn't like that.
Yeah, I think that's hard to throw out any comps for Cooper Kupp. Awesome. I'm going to talk a little bit about the offensive free agent signings that I find to be pretty cool and curious. Damian Harris to the Bills, running back. I think that's an upgrade, right? I think he's a proven back if he can stay healthy between the tackles. I think he can catch the ball a little bit, but they have James Cook, obviously. They have Nyheim Hines, so they have the third down back kind of covered. I think they're going to work Cook in a little bit more on first and second and third, and he can kind of carry a little bit of a 10 to 12 to 14 touch kind of range, and then Harris is going to be the pounder when they're up. And then they have Hines for special teams and kind of as insurance. I think that's a pretty decent backfield when it's all said and done. We'll see what they do in the draft. I've seen rumors of them looking at rookies. But right now it's pretty talented group, and I think they definitely have an upgraded RB room versus what they had last year. I like the Elijah Moore to Cleveland deal. He wanted out of the Jets. I think he's talented. I mean, whether or not he's a head case or not, I think everybody's writing Cleveland off because of the way Watson performed last year. I don't know what people expected. The guy had been,
OTAs, dude.
He had no energy after, having 65 hand jobs in the course of, 10 weeks. Like how can someone even have any energy to play football? And then he's out of football for, a year and a half, basically, with a new team, wasn't able to practice. Deshaun Watson is an immense talent. I don't understand where people are just saying he's garbage and trash and whatnot. He's going to be just fine, and they're going to be good. They can run the football. They have Cooper. They have Elijah Moore. They have Donovan Peoples-Jones that, got better last year. David Njoku, who's a talented tight end on, that quite frankly outperformed what my expectations were for him last year. I think Cleveland is going to be a good football team next year. Could be wrong, but I don't think they're going to be worse than they were this year.
He's still there. He was, he took us to some good seasons. He's a good offensive mind, and if Deshaun doesn't do it with those weapons, then he's kind of trash, But I would be surprised. It would have to be so mental that he just back into it, but I
think he kicked the rust off a little bit last year. He's kind of back into it now. He'll have the full training camp. I think it's just going to be a different Deshaun Watson, but he doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, they can run the football, right? I think defensively they can probably keep in games. But I don't know. The other comment I want to make that really bothers me, and I've heard so many people talk about this, Deshaun Watson is not Lamar Jackson. I mean, it was a completely different situation. So people talking about why Lamar Jackson hasn't gotten the same contract and the guaranteed contract to Deshaun Watson and saying it's ludicrous, to me, are stupid. They're stupid people. First of all, as a Bears fan, I would rather have Justin Fields and his contract right now versus Lamar Jackson on my team. So people saying that the Bears should have given up 2 first-round picks to have Lamar Jackson come in, no thank you. We'll pass. I think he is a running quarterback that is not extremely accurate, has not won any big games. So they can get off the fucking Lamar Jackson train for all I care. Like he's a good quarterback, but you have to build a complete system around him for him to be successful, which the Ravens have done, and they still haven't been successful.
Says you.
Says me, yes.
Him in another system.
Okay, fine.
We haven't seen him with weapons.
But he's not the same player as Deshaun Watson.
He won the MVP, motherfucker. He's better than it.
He had. How many years ago was that?
2?
Okay. The game's changed, right? I mean, like,
it hasn't. The game has not changed in 2 years from Lamar Jackson winning MVP, dude.
I'm saying that was a scheme that teams had to adjust to, and they have now adjusted. And there's other teams that are also running that scheme. Lamar Jackson is, to me, a siloed offensive skill player. I don't think he's a full, well-rounded quarterback like Deshaun Watson is. I'm sorry, I just don't. And there's also a risk of injury. I just don't see why people can compare those two and then say, well, you know, it's ludicrous and it's a conspiracy.
Like compare him to Kyler Murray and his money.
What's that?
What about Kyler Murray and his?
That was wrong. I mean, I wouldn't have done that, but it wasn't all guaranteed, was it?
You have 2 quarterbacks who are disgustingly overpaid with not as much talent as Lamar.
Watson was one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league before he started going through his troubles.
He had a fucking scandal where he had to go walk with.
Correct.
He's going to have mental issues.
There's only one Cleveland out there, Ben. There's only one Cleveland out there, right? Like, I mean, not every organization is going to operate like Cleveland.
I'll tell you who fucked up. You know who fucked up? Cincinnati Bengals. If the Cincinnati Bengals would have just said, we're extending Joe Burrow for 2 more years and giving him all guaranteed money of like $40 million a year, which he deserves, right? They don't need to make that decision now. But if they just flat guaranteed Joe Burrow's money, which they're going to pay him no matter what, then they would have then there's no way Lamar Jackson signs for anything less.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the whole thing is like, well, it's this outlier of Deshaun Watson. It's like, no, it's not. Deshaun Watson and the mayor of Munchkinland, as Lombardi calls him, fucking Kyler Murray, who sucks ass. And he's the atrocity, right?
He is the atrocity, but
it's about the guaranteed money that Deshaun got. But I mean, the Mahomes contract in 5 years is going to look like a steal. It already does.
Yeah, absolutely it is, because it's not guaranteed, and it's like, I mean, whatever. It's front loaded.
Cincinnati knows Joe Burrow's their guy. They should have just checkmated and made sure that, you know, basically that the Baltimore Ravens were in shambles.
Yeah.
They're playing checkers while they should be playing chess.
I don't know. I'd like to see Lamar on another team. I just understand why people
take him.
I just don't. I mean, 3 years, 140 million. I mean, I think that's appropriate. Like, if you want to give someone 5 years, that's a running quarterback that's been hurt the last 2 with knee issues. Like, I think it's okay to understand why teams are passing on that. And then you have to give up the draft capital as well to get him.
Draft capital is where it gets dicey. It's not the value. I mean, trust me, man.
No, 150 for 3 years to a quarterback of his talent is nothing. You have to consider it all, right? I mean,
100% guaranteed. And no draft capital, I could get Lamar Jackson for 3 years.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I'm fucking shipping that.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. Anyway, side note there. The last one that I wanted to talk about was Brandon Cooks to Dallas. Brandon Cooks has produced 1,000 yards at pretty much everywhere he's gone.
He sleeps and wakes up with 1,000 yards.
Yeah. He's actually pretty reliable. He doesn't miss a ton of games. I think him stretching.
Shout out to Wayne. Wayne called this 2 years ago, bruh. Wayne was talking up Cooks, because
I don't understand why he keeps just getting shipped out like a fucking like. I mean, he's just.
Well, in Houston, he was becoming a bad teammate because it was just like this.
Well, he hasn't been on a winning team either, really. Like, I mean, I think.
And you get out before teams win Super Bowl.
I think it's going to help everybody in Dallas. I think Dallas will draft another tight end, another Dalton probably. But I think it instantly makes CeeDee Lamb better underneath. I mean, Michael Gallup is not a true number 2.
He's a great number 3.
I think he's a great number 3 as well. So I think that's a really good move for Dallas. I like what Dallas did with keeping Tony Pollard. I think they'll draft someone else too, and getting rid of Zeke. Like, and they might re-sign Zeke for.
Hey, you're taking my thunder on my segment later. I have these guys.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm just an offensive guy. I don't know anything about defense. But I will surprise some people this year with my play on the defensive end of the ball. I'm starting to figure it all out, boys. So watch out. That's all I have. Keeping it sweet and short. Talk to me a little bit about the risers as far as teams that you like.
Yeah. So I thought Atlanta's offseason is low key. Outside of them not going, Atlanta getting Lamar Jackson would be a fucking problem because they actually have that team set up for it, right? It's just like a power run team. Like they got it would be
tall receivers that have.
It's like it would just be fucking the shit. I don't know why they didn't just go get him. That's the team we should go get him. But they went and got New Orleans' defensive coordinator, who's a stud, right? And I think that needs to be like strongly considered on their improvements. But also he brought key guys that he needs in his defense with him, right? So we got David Onyemata and Caden Ellis, who are not like studs, but they're like super crucial filler guys for like them to not completely have to reshape what they have for their defense. And I think they're going to be able to be like crazy flexible in the draft because of those moves. I talked about Jesse Bates. Like that's a major move for them to like solidify their secondary and a weakness that they had back there. They lost Isaiah Oliver, but I don't know. I kind of think he was probably worth not keeping at this point in his career. But I like where they're going because they're like they spend a lot of their money on offensive line, keeping their guys and making sure they have depth. And so they're going to be able to fucking run the ball. And so we'll see what they do with quarterback. But like, I mean, if they run with Ritter and then just pound the rock with Patterson and Algier like they did last time, they would be good teams doing that. And their defense was better than average. They're retaining majority of the guys. They're adding some other depth pieces that they need and like a better defensive coordinator. Like I think Atlanta is like a sneaky dark horse to win that division. Like without having flash. Like they don't have flashy players. Like I think that's a good bet right now because like it's super up in the air. With Tampa, Carolina, like you don't know about these guys, but I think we know that Atlanta was better than we expected them to be last year, right? With a very, very subpar quarterback play. And they got better and they got a better defensive coordinator. So I just think you should like watch out for Atlanta in a weird way. Like they could be a random 10-16 with like no superstars taking them anywhere, really.
Like it. Okay.
And then we kind of been touching on this, but the Cowboys, man, like, Detroit's probably, the next for me, but man, the Cowboys with that Cook signing and Gilmore, I think having Stephon Gilmore is super important for Diggs to play the way he wants to play. If he wants to get back to that elite, like risk reward player, because he doesn't have the pressure to take the best guy all the time. Gilmore can kind of rotate. They can do a lot of different stuff with that. I think that signing is going to make their defense really good. And then them keeping Vander Esch and Wilson on like super, super reasonable contracts, man. Those are, Vander Esch has that injury history. He's probably not going to get more money elsewhere. Wilson got paid a little better, but I mean, I thought he was going to probably get Jesse Bates money, but I think he was less. And he stays home, and like that Dallas defense is just going to get better. And they have the good pass rush. They're going to have better coverage, and they're going to be able to make turnovers. So I think Dallas, when you take a look at taking Zeke off your books, that's some good cap flexibility for something that's kind of been holding them down for a long time. I think that was the whole problem people had, was you just can't pay other guys when you have Zeke fucking eating your books up. And now, I mean, we'll see what they do in the draft, but there's a lot of guys I like for Dallas to take who I think would complement Pollard really well. And they don't have to go, they can take him in the third or fourth fucking round. Like running backs aren't valued anymore. In worst case, they don't get one of them, go sign fucking Fat Lenny.
Yeah.
But with Cooks to me, like, you don't have Dak force feeding CeeDee. He's going to have a couple more guys open. And then, I think the Cowboys, if they get another one, a better complement, and a younger complement, and a cheaper complement than Zeke to go with Pollard, they can still run the game and take the pressure off of Dak. So, like, I think where, like, I like how the Eagles, for how much they should have lost, didn't lose as much. But I don't think the Cowboys lost anything. They just got better. And they were pretty fucking good last year. You know what I mean? So I'm super interested in the Cowboys this year.
Nice. I like it. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I talked about the Bears. I talked about the Lions. I talked about Cleveland. I think the Jets are probably the most notable team with what happens with Rodgers. I think they're definitely better. I think they're a talented offensive group. They were actually making pretty good strides last year with subpar quarterback play. I think that division is going to be very interesting. I mean, then I think I'd throw out Denver too. As much as they kind of sucked ass last year, they had some injuries. Russ was awful, but Sean Payton's a differentiator, and he's gonna kind of create some different vibes in that organization. I think that Denver has a ton of talent on both sides of the ball. I think they could be extremely competitive compared to where they were this last year. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that. We covered it. Let's move to positional players that we kind of are curious as to see or would like to see where they end up in the draft from a rookie perspective, because we have the next thing is the NFL draft. Who would you like to see? Or I think I actually gave you a list of players to kind of
give me a list.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. I got to find the list, but you're up first.
What's the nickname we're giving the best running back in the draft? BJ? BJ's for days?
Oh, Mr. Robinson? Yeah. I mean, whatever you want to tag is yours to call. I hope they're on at least one league.
Mrs. Robinson, yeah. I go back and forth with trying not to get overhyped with anybody in these drafts, especially like running backs, but he's really good. And when I say really good, like, I don't know, like he's got potential to do what, the Barkleys and like the big explosive guys that come out and just dominate on receiving, running through the tackles. He can kind of do it all. I mean, he's not LaDainian Tomlinson, but I mean, he can kind of do all the stuff he needs to do. He's a good lead blocker. He's a good pull blocker. He's a good receiver. He's a good runner between the tackles. He's a good gap runner. Like, he does it kind of all. So, like, I don't know. Usually, like, you look at these running backs, there's a lot of limitations on their teams they're going to get. I think anyone can take this guy and be.
The funny aspect of the running backs is, like, it's not necessarily a shit team that's going to take them, right? Because people don't invest in running backs in the top 15, draft picks. So
that's super interesting.
Ideally, you want to see him land at on a good team where he's going to be playing in playoff games and have a good offensive line, like a Cincinnati or someone that's going to move on from Joe Mixon, or a fucking Dallas where he can, behind that mammoth offensive line, right? Like,
yeah,
it would be pretty cool to see him from a fantasy perspective in a powerhouse offense.
Anyone rebuilding shouldn't be putting draft capital into running back.
Right.
Like, it should be a third, fourth rounder. Like, go try and get a Mixon, try and get a Cook, try and, like, hit one of those guys, and you'll whiff. But, like, when you're rebuilding, you shouldn't be doing that. When you need to like go get a chip, that's when I like taking some of these super high talents, because if you don't have that position, and I think the Eagles are going to take him, and I know Ramon keeps saying no, but I don't think they're going to take him with that
10th pick.
No, I think they're going to take him with the 30th.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where you start to think maybe 25 to 30 range, but I think someone will grab him before that.
And I don't think so, man. As good as I think he is, there's no indication from what I saw in the free agency market that anybody, and I mean anybody, is willing to spend first round draft capital where you have a higher balloon and a 5th year. Like this, like you don't do that with that player. You want a 5th year option on an offensive lineman. You want a 5th year option on a wide receiver. You want a 5th year option on a quarterback. You don't want a 5th year option on a fucking running back. It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so like you start looking at picks. 19 to Tampa Bay. Probably not. Seattle, no way at 20. 21 at the Chargers.
Why? Unless they got a first round pick for Austin Eckler, no fucking way.
Okay. Baltimore at 22, probably not. Minnesota, no way. Jacksonville, no way. New York Giants, no way. Dallas Cowboys at 26.
Because of Jerry Jones, it's in play.
27, Buffalo Bills.
No.
Okay. 28, Cincinnati.
Well,
with Mixon on 1 year left.
Today actually getting re-indicted, it's probably in play.
Yeah. And then you have, I think.
But what if the Eagles move up 6 spots from that 30?
Yeah, I mean it's
you know possible. That's in play.
And then you have the Chiefs and the Eagles, really right? So I mean, if he goes in the first round, I would say your targets are either a trade up or the Bengals or Cowboys with
Bengals, Dallas, Cowboys. If it's in the first round,
it would be fun to see him on either one of those teams.
You can't take a guy like that. If you're Houston, you can't take, or whatever. What team even needs a running back? Does anyone need a running back?
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly what you said. What team needs to invest in that running back? But look at Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor changes an organization. I don't care if you have to invest in him or not. And he was what, a round 2 he was a round 2 running back?
He still sucked last year.
He didn't suck last year. They sucked.
The Colts did.
Oh yeah. Well, that's quarterback.
Now you're stuck with Jonathan Taylor in his prime in a rebuilding organization.
Maybe you get 4 or 5 years left of him.
It's not good. Yeah. It's not good.
I get it. All right, we gotta move a little bit quicker. What about JSM?
JSM, I think the dream for fantasy and just for in general is if Houston takes Stroud number 2 and then takes him number 12.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I agree. I was thinking the same.
On the web, or is it Houston takes Stroud?
What the fuck? Shut up, Siri. What the fuck?
Are you asking ChatGPT?
I wish I should have ChatGPT this whole fucking thing.
What is going on?
No, I don't know. My Siri showed up on my computer. I was talking too excited, I guess. But that is because when you think about it, that connection, would he just be the number 1, but he would just have pure chemistry out the gate with Stroud starting and him starting.
Fields said he was the best receiver he's ever played with.
Who?
Justin Fields.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, from a separation standpoint, he's you don't know how he's just always open. So I mean, to have that connection where people could read each other, it's kind of like the Burrow to Chase kind of connection. That's
what the vibe is, man. If you look how fast that connection develops because they're just coming straight from college. It's that can't be underestimated. If Carolina takes Stroud for some weird reason, then it's very different, right? And even if they do take, say, Bryce Young and then 12 take JSM, I don't know if I like it as much, right? They still got to learn each other. They got to figure out how they're working on a bad team. JSM and Stroud, they're just going to go sling the rock. And if they suck, it doesn't matter. They're just going to keep doing what they do.
Yeah.
And so if you see those two things, I would put JSM in the top 3, maybe even 2nd overall, depending where these landing spots go in the rookie draft.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. All right, I had you at Charbonnet.
Yeah. Charbonnet, interesting one you picked. I don't really like him very much because he is not a good blocker and he's a terrible receiver, but he's a good runner. And I think that he goes to Tennessee in like the 3rd round.
Yeah, I kind of think he's like a 4th round back. I don't.
3rd or 4th. But the reason I think Tennessee is because he does really well what Derrick Henry does really well. And so if you have a system built and you just want to pound the rock and you want to make sure you can not change that system. That's a lot why they had like Devontae Foreman had some success. It was like kind of similar, but like this would be a very good addition. Like, and if you want to run, receiving back or whatever, you have it. And then Derrick Henry, his entire contract, he signed that 3-year contract, but that's all front loaded for this year. He's only got a $4 million dead cap next year, and then $2 million after that. So for some reason, he ended up being really good as what he does. Either you could trade Derrick Henry next year because the contract's super viable and probably get some value for it because he won't cost that next team that much money. Or, because if they're still in this rebuilding phase, they shouldn't have Derrick Henry. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But mid-season, somebody loses a running back and they're in a bad shape, and most of the cap hits gone to Tennessee already, and 2 more years on that contract's cheap, they might be able to get a 1st rounder for Derrick Henry mid-season if he's sitting there doing the same, 80% of that work in the back. So I think that would be good. Obviously, the Dallas would be ideal too, right? Because you could do some downfield work, and then Pollard could do all the receiving and stuff. But that stuff kind of gets a little obvious when they're so polarly opposite.
I could see him going somewhere like New England too, where it's just like they always work with 2 different backs. They moved on from Damian Harris, and they want someone else that can pound the football. Stevenson is a 3-down back. He can catch the football, but Charbonnet, he has some skills there. I think what I've read on him is he's not as bad as he seems in the passing game, but not from a blocking perspective needs work. But
he's a good chipper though. He can chip. He's not good at holding blocks. If you're going blitz is coming in, you got to get a quick pass off. That's why it's like Tennessee. They're going to run the ball and run short intermediate games, right? Quick decisions. They're not going to make, Tannehill is going to be able to work. And then even if they're just not going to make them think that much. So I think he will be adequate at making sure the quarterback doesn't get murdered off of a blitz, but holding blocks, it's not good.
How about Addison?
Addison is going to be the best wide receiver in this draft, I think.
Interesting. I'm going to take a note of that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like Calvin Ridley. Well, here's the thing. I want to be very clear on what I think about the wide receiver class. I don't think any of these guys are super favorites to be number 1s unless, the boy we're talking about, JSM, if he's in Houston and he's the number 1 by default because they suck. I don't know how much any of these guys are going to be a number 1. And I don't know if they should be number 1s.
There's not a Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson in this class, is what you're saying.
Well, here's the thing. All of these guys are not good in press coverage. They're not good with physical cornerbacks and big cornerbacks. Okay, so what that means is if you have the number 1 cornerback on you, you're getting owned.
Yeah.
Okay, and this was Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith had an okay rookie season, but he was had problem with the physicality, and but guess what? AJ Brown comes in, that guy's on him. Now you have a smaller, undersized guy on you, and you just torch his ass all day.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what I think Addison is going to be. So I think if he lands on a team where he's the number 2, I think people would kind of frown on that, but I think that's apex perfect for him. So I have him, man, I've seen him in mocks falling to the Vikings, I would shit myself if that happened.
Yeah.
Because we lose 10 to 12 touchdowns a year with Adam Thielen. He's a brilliant red zone threat. And what he can do is he plays that Z spot. We need someone to play Z. We don't need a slot guy because that's what JJ does, even though he's big and whatever. He's kind of all around. And then Osborne, he's a good blocker and he can kind of go between the 2 positions. So I think Addison in our offense would shine, man. Like if he could be good right out the gate, which I think he can, and he's fucking really elite in route running and stuff. We're going blowing through this time, aren't we?
Yeah, 10 more minutes on this segment, but then we got to get into the other stuff. So,
well, I like him with the Vikings, or anywhere he would be a number 2. If the physical number 1 corner has to cover another guy, I think he'll be super successful.
Okay. I'm going to go into a few other guys, just random. We can just talk about.
Hold on, real quick. I'm just going to go. You said Mayer as my last one.
Yeah.
So I'll make this super fast. I don't think he is. I think there's at least 2 or 3 tight ends better than he is.
Okay.
And I know some people are hyping him and they like him, but like from what I've read on what he can't do well, it's not stuff that teaches easy and takes time to groom unless he's in a really good offense. I think he should be with the Saints because he's kind of like Waller, and Derek Carr knows how to play with a guy like that, right? But I think the Bengals would be sick if they got him at like 60. The Bengals got him.
I hope the Bengals take a legit tight end, and it looks like they're
well, because they got Irv Smith on that 1-year deal. They're super similar players. So like if he's just grooming behind Irv Smith to get a little bit better at blocking and stuff like that, like Joe Burrow would just have his ass wide open all the time. He's got good hands. His right wording is an elite. He's got limitations, but in a right offense, he could still be really good. But I think your boy from Iowa is better than he is.
Yeah, Sam Laporta is going to surprise some people.
Well, here's what's crazy. Matt Waldman,
tight end you
has him 7th.
Let's not talk about Sam Laporta too much, all right? Let's just
no. I mean, Mayer. Matt Waldman has Mayer 7th.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean Mayer sucks. That's how good the tight end class is.
It's a good class. That's exciting. I think
there's going to be
BC. It's super.
I think those 7 guys, cool. 5 out of the 7 will be solid starters.
I think there's 3 guys that are equal to Pat Freiermuth in his rookie season. I think that's a very interesting pick.
I agree 100%. I think it's
and we all know how little tight end action there is in BC, and so I think it's becoming more of an important position. If you can play 2 of them, to be honest with you, and get 8 to 10 points, you're in a pretty good spot.
All right, go. Sorry, I didn't leave you much time. 7.5 minutes.
Now, you know me, I'm pretty concise when I need to be, unless I go off on a random fucking rant. Gibbs, I'd like to see go to the Chargers. I think, or someone like Miami, right? Speed and just on the edges, utilized not on first and second down completely, but just explosive player with open space. I think he could easily go into the Chargers and replace Eckler, and using the same role, and I think he'd be dynamic in Miami. So I think he's a 2nd round running back, but if he's in the right situation on a good team, he could be super explosive. Flowers, man, I watched some of his tape, and I am a lover of what that guy does. It's just there's something about the way he acts and his demeanor too when he's running routes. He just wants to fuck people up, and he's a dog, right? And he has that little man syndrome where he's just I don't know. I just see him being a problem. I think he's a better version than Rondale Moore, and I think he can win on the outside too a little bit. He can be playing the slot. I don't know where he's going to land, but I would have him as the number 2 wide receiver in on the board right now. So
he can be the best. He can be the best in the class too. He's got the talent.
Yeah, Quentin Johnson. Boy, I get a lot of Kevin White vibes as a Bears fan here, just because of the way he's raw, right? Like I think if he gets in the right situation and it's not frustrating and he starts off like with some success, he's going to be fine and he could be dominant. He's got all the tools. He's a big dude. I love big wide receivers. I'm concerned about the technical aspects of what he does. And if he's kind of a one-trick pony, he could either be, Mike Williams, or he could be fucking Kevin White. So, and I think he's kind of a one-note kind of guy. It doesn't have the full route tree or any of that stuff. But man, I fall in love with big athletic wide receivers that can win in the end zone, win contested catches. But the hands are a concern, obviously. So love to see him with a good quarterback. The and a good team, so he doesn't have to be the man right away and have a lot of pressure on him. Ochne, starting to fall in love with him a little bit. Is that how you pronounce him? Pronounce his name? The back from Texas A&M.
I don't. I'm not the guy to ask yet. I didn't watch enough college this year, and I didn't grind. Like the draft, the combine. So
yeah, just another little guy, undersized running back, super explosive. I think he ran a 4.36. He seems kind of a little Sproulsy almost in a way, like just kind of, I don't know. You can run him through the tackles. Again, I'm starting to kind of change my demeanor. Like I never used to like small receivers, never used to like small running backs. They kind of just annoyed the shit out of me. I was never a Darren Sproles fan until you realize how productive he was. And in BC, I think guys that, start off as special teamers or at least have that role in their first or second year, and then they're getting sprinkled in on offense as a 3-down back, man, those 150 points kind of sneak up on you fast. So I like him as a talent.
There's a couple of those guys really undersized weapon types in this draft, and those keep coming up more and more because it's not just they're being played more in college, but they're just they're getting the more chances in the draft because those weapons get used in the NFL.
I think overall, because I only have 3 minutes, and we'll cut it off and then do another link for the third segment, the final segment. It's an interesting draft. I'm not like as excited about it as I have been in the past. I don't have a ton of picks. I have 3 picks in BC, so it's pretty easy for me to just pick a couple guys. But I think you need to be smart, right? Like if, for instance, I had pick 1, 2. I can just go in, I'll pick Gibbs and move on, but there's talent to be had. I just don't know if there's top end talent necessarily. So I'd rather have multiple picks in the first round than one pick that you have to throw a dart on. And that's where it gets a little bit dicey. So I'm open to trade 1, 2 if anybody wants to come up there and take a guy that they love. I'm not necessarily in love with
that Stroud JSM combo. He might be worth taking number 2.
Yeah. Well, there's that's in play. I think at this point, old Core Dog with pick 1, 2. Thank you, John Candy and Roman for 1, 2. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. All right, we are going to take a pause here, and we are going to come back and talk about the State of the Union, the BC Fantasy Football League. What needs to be done? What can be improved? Honest conversation between Ben and I about our thoughts in a clear, concise manner. Okay, we'll be back.